The sun scorched the Texas plains like judgment itself, and she stood there barefoot, half buried in dust, half buried in shame. Rose Alvarez. Her husband had tied her to a fence post at noon, in front of the ranch hands, to prove he owned her. Her dress, once white, was now the color of dirt and fear. She had stopped begging hours ago. The flies had stopped flinching at her tears. Her voice was gone, but her eyes still searched the horizon for mercy. The wind lifted her hair as if it wanted to carry her away. But even the wind seemed afraid. Then he appeared on the ridge, a man weathered like the land itself, a gray beard, sunburned face, and eyes that had buried more men than he cared to count. Jack McKenna. He had only planned to water his horse at Hondo Creek and move on, but the sight of her stopped him in his tracks. Silence fell across the plain. Birds froze mid-flight. The wind held its breath. Caleb Royce, her husband, stood just 10 feet away, bottle in hand, laughing at his own cruelty. "This is how you teach a wife," he said loud enough for God to hear. Jack dismounted. "Untie her." Caleb smirked. "You'd best keep riding, old man. She ain't your problem," a voice whispered from behind the barn. "Stop. He'll kill you." But Jack didn't stop. He walked toward her slowly, like a man entering church, fully aware he might not walk out alive. He cut the rope binding her wrists. Blood seeped where the fibers had cut deep. She tried to step, knees buckling, and he caught her before she hit the dirt. For a moment, time itself seemed to forget to breathe. Caleb's voice came again, colder this time. "Touch her again, and I'll bury you right here." Jack lifted his head. Their eyes met. One pair filled with liquor and hate, the other with a quiet fire that required no words. The devil himself lived behind Caleb's eyes, and Jack saw it clearly. Still, he didn't draw his gun. He only said, low and steady, "You already buried enough souls, son." The wind picked up, swirling dust around them. Rose's breathing slowed as her fingers gripped Jack's sleeve like the last thread keeping her tethered to the world. And under that brutal sun, the world shifted. A stranger became her only hope, her husband became the devil himself. Jack guided her to an old cottonwood by the creek. Her body felt as light as a child's, but her silence weighed heavier than the saddle he carried. He laid her down by the water, splashed her face, and watched the dust wash away like the shame leaving her soul. Slowly, she opened her eyes, wary, afraid, still beautiful in a quiet, broken way. "Where am I?" she whispered. "Halfway between nowhere and another chance," he said softly. Rose blinked, unsure if that was a place or a gentle lie. She tried to sit, but her arm trembled too much. He draped his coat around her shoulders. She flinched. He saw that flinch, and it hurt more than any bullet ever could. In that instant, he realized saving her wasn't about bravery, it was about finally forgiving himself. For a while, silence reigned. Only the creek made a sound, a coyote called from the far ridge. Jack stirred the fire he'd built from dry sage. "You got any kin?" he asked. "No one who'd want to claim me now." "Guess that makes two of us," he said. A soft, surprised laugh escaped her, the first sound of life he'd heard from her in hours. It hit him squarely in the chest. When the soup boiled, he handed her a tin cup. She held it like something sacred. "Eat slow," he said. "Your body forgot what kindness tastes like." She smiled faintly, and the night felt warmer. Later, as stars appeared, she asked, "Why'd you help me?" Jack poked the fire, eyes on the flames. "Some things you just don't turn your back on. You're not like the rest," she said, studying him. He tipped his hat lower. "Don't give me more credit than I deserve." They sat in silence that didn't hurt. For the first time, she didn't feel hunted. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. Somewhere between the crackle of the fire and the whispering creek, the night stopped being cruel, but the West never stays quiet for long. Far down the valley, a dog barked once, twice, and then nothing. Jack's eyes lifted toward the darkness. He heard horses, 3 of them, moving slow. "Rose, get behind me," he said. Her heart froze as the warmth of hope vanished. Hooves pounded closer. This time, the devil wasn't far behind. The past had come riding through the dark, and it always came for what you love most. 3 riders emerged like ghosts remembering your name. Jack stood, rifle low but ready. Rose crouched behind the wagon, tin cup clutched, breath short, hands trembling. "McKenna, step aside. We just came for what's ours," the first man called. Jack's voice didn't rise. "You mean the woman you beat half to death?" A laugh, sharp and mean. "She's my wife, old man. You don't get between a man and what's his." The firelight hit Caleb's face. For the first time, Rose saw him as he truly was, hollow, a man consumed by cruelty. "Please don't let him take me," she whispered. Jack tilted his head slightly, eyes never leaving Caleb. "He won't." Caleb dismounted, heavy boots crunching the dirt. "Last warning. Hand her over, McKenna." Jack smiled faintly, but there was nothing kind in it. "Son, I've been hurt since before you were born. This ain't going to change much." The prairie went still. Then gunfire broke the quiet. The first shot missed, the second didn't. Sparks flew as a bullet tore through the wagon wheel, scattering embers across the prairie. Rose screamed. Jack stepped forward, moving like the ground itself guided him. Each shot calm, each breath steady. But this time, Rose wasn't just hiding. She grabbed the rifle from the saddle, hands shaking, and fired into the air. Horses spooked. One rider fell. Another ran. In the chaos, Jack took his shot. 1 bullet, 1 man down. 2 men locked eyes through smoke and dust. Caleb's gaze was wild, black, empty. The devil Jack had faced years ago stared back. One final shot rang out. Then silence. Caleb hit the ground hard. The others ran. Jack lowered his rifle, hand trembling. Rose stepped closer, voice soft as the wind. "It's over." A lone figure emerged from the dark, carrying a letter, a name, a debt as old as the land. Jack whispered, "Nothing's ever over." They buried Caleb near Hondo Crossing. No words, no prayers, just dust and quiet. As the sun fell, Jack stood by the grave, hat in hand, eyes on the horizon. Rose slipped her hand into his. No promises, just warmth, just life. The river carried blood, ash, and perhaps a little forgiveness downstream. Coyotes called from the hills, and Jack saw a shadow move near the fence line. The past wasn't done with them. Morning came golden and slow. Jack saddled his horse while Rose washed her face in the creek. Silence meant peace, for now. But trouble always lingered. By midday, the sky turned brass. Hot wind carried the smell they both recognized, gunpowder. Caleb was coming back, and this time, he hadn't come alone. Dust clouds rose from the ridge. 4 men approached, Caleb in front, his arms bandaged, eyes burning with hate. Jack said quietly, "Get behind the rocks. If it goes bad, you ride north." "The smell of copper tells me the ground's about to drink blood again," he muttered. Rose shook her head. "I'm done running." The men stopped at the shallow water of Hondo Crossing. Caleb's voice cracked. "You took my wife, old man. Now I'll take your life." Jack's tone remained calm. "You threw her away the moment you stopped being a man." Then all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted across the water. Bullets tore through cattails, kicking up dirt and blood. Rose clung to a rock, whispering half-forgotten prayers. Jack moved like he was guided by the earth itself. Caleb charged, horse screaming, pistol flashing. Jack stood his ground. Rose grabbed the rifle again and fired. Horses bolted. Chaos erupted. Jack's shot found its mark. One man down. Another fled. Caleb's eyes were wild, empty, familiar. One final shot, and silence returned. Jack lowered his weapon. Rose whispered, "It's over." Jack said, "Nothing's ever over." They buried Caleb quietly. The sun fell. Jack stood at the grave, hat in hand. Rose joined him, hand in his. Peace was a fragile thing they had to make with their own hands. Days passed. Jack repaired the barn. Rose planted wildflowers along the fence. Each petal a promise that even in hard soil, life and beauty could grow. At dusk, she brought him coffee. Sometimes, words weren't needed, silence spoke louder. One evening, she asked, "Do we deserve peace after all we've done?" Jack smiled faintly, eyes on the horizon. Peace isn't something you earn. It's something you build, one small mercy at a time. Rose leaned her head on his shoulder. They watched a hawk circle overhead, wings steady, free. Life didn't hand peace to anyone, it had to be made, guarded, and cherished. Every scar told a story. Not one of them was shame anymore. Each was proof that they had lived, fought, and refused to stay broken. The West had always been about more than guns or dust. It was about the people who got up when the world told them to stay down. And so, they did.